Jeff's Superscript is brought to you by Black Cat Comics and Collectibles, in my opinion, the best comic shop and clubhouse on the internet. Follow them at Black Cat Burbank on Instagram and join their claim sales on Tuesdays for new books and Fridays for back issues. And don't forget to ask about joining their Stray Cats Club for special perks.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another one of my videos where I take a look at all the new comic books coming out on either March 16th or 17th, 2021. And I ask myself the question, what one new comic book would I buy this week if I could buy just one book? Now, my video this week's coming out just a little bit late. Thank you all so much for your patience. If you wouldn't mind taking this opportunity before we all forget to go ahead and hit that like button. I've been getting more likes on these videos, and it's thanks to all of you taking the time to go ahead and hit that like button. I appreciate it every single time. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and start this video by taking a look back at my pick from 2 weeks ago. And that pick was Berserker #1 by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kindt. The question is, was that a worthy pick to be my just one book pick of the week? And the answer is yes. Yes, no, it was good. Now, was it earth-shattering? Is it going to change the landscape of comic books forever? Is it the greatest comic book of all time? No. No, it's none of those things. But was it really entertaining? Yeah, it was definitely very, very entertaining. It was a fun, exciting read, and I enjoyed it. Now, granted, I might have preferred that maybe one or two fewer skulls were smashed in than were in this issue of a comic book, but in a lot of ways, that type of violence speaks to the character. So there's actual character development in the character's violence. So I can actually sort of forgive it from being gratuitous and actually being a storytelling device. So the ultra violence was fine with me. But all in all, like I said, it was a good comic book. I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I will continue to read it, and I look forward to seeing what is to come from it. All right, let's move forward and take a look at the books coming out this week. First, by taking a look at my cover pick for the week. There are two contenders. The second contender was a very close pick for it, and I like it a lot. It is from Catwoman number 29. It is the cover B cardstock variant from Jenny Frison. Yes, we have talked about Jenny Frison a lot in this section of these videos. It's because she's fantastic, and this cover is no exception. She has done Catwoman before. She'll do Catwoman again. She does a very good job with it. To be quite honest, the only thing that I really dislike about this cover is that it's much too upside down for me. I even rotated it all the way around to see would I like it better in this direction, and frankly, no, I didn't really love it in that orientation either. But it's just a little bit too straight up upside down for me, so that's the only reason it didn't become my pick for cover pick of this week. But that being said, it is fantastic art. It's a fantastic cover done by Jenny Frison. But the book that did get my pick as cover pick of the week is The Walking Dead Deluxe number 11 with this cover art by Julian Totino Tedesco. Why? I don't know. I just really like it. I like the depth of field with some stuff in the background and then the foreground being out of focus. I like the pose of that zombie in the front. I like the action of what is happening in the background there. I like the color palette that they chose. It was just, when I look for a cover pick, I'm flipping through all the different covers that are coming out this week, and I'm looking for something that jumps out at me and demands that I pay attention to it. And this week, that cover was this one, and that is why I made it my cover pick for this week. All right, let's keep moving forward, looking at this week's books. Now, I'm going to do things just a little bit different this week because this was kind of a unique week for me and how I went about choosing my book. So bear with me. However, as always, I am using League of Comic Geeks as my resource for information on these books. League of Comic Geeks presents their books from the most pulled, or what I would call the most popular book, to the least pulled, or the least popular book. I will be presenting this list to you from the least popular book to the most popular book. The first book that I want to point out to you today is Jim Henson's Storyteller, Tricksters, number 1. Now let me go ahead and read just a little bit of the description of it to you. It says, discover the story of Anansi, the spider god, and his quest to free all stories from his father, the sky god Naemi. But when Anansi becomes the keeper of all stories, he hoards them until his son confronts them to free the knowledge that could change the world. Now, I talked a little bit more in specifics and read the whole description in my FOC video that I put out for this week's books. I'll put the card for it right up there if you want to go back and check out that video, maybe get a little bit more information about the descriptions of some of these books that I'll be talking about this week. But basically, all I want to say about this is that Jim Henson is cool. Jim Henson's kind of brand is cool. The type of stories that Jim Henson's brand presents are cool. And if you are a fan of that style of fantasy and storytelling, then this is going to be the book for you. The next one I want to mention to you is a book called Vietnam Horror number 1. Here's the description. It says, in Vietnam, a unit of American soldiers is running an underground reconnaissance using men known as tunnel rats, Colton Jones being one of them. Strange movements and unusual songs had been coming from a nearby mountain, causing the men to be sent into the tunnels to search for members of the Viet Cong in hiding. However, inside of the mountain, they'll find something they could have never prepared for. This one, I think, if you are interested in horror comics or you are interested in war-themed comics, this is going to be a comic for you. The next one I want to mention to you is G.I. Joe Castle Fall number 1. Here is the description of that. It is from IDW. It says, the past year of G.I. Joe leads to this. The Joes aim to topple Cobra by turning its own assets against them. But Cobra strikes first as Joe leadership from the inside. Twists, turns, and massive amounts of action make this a G.I. Joe event not to be missed. I'm not sure if this is a one-shot, but it is oversized and it is $7.99. So it's definitely sounds like it's going to be a major event, at least in its thickness, in the G.I. Joe universe. If you're a fan of G.I. Joe, I guarantee you're going to be picking this up this week. The next book I want to mention to you is The Bequest, number 1. Let's get to that. I'm not quite as organized as I usually am this week. I have to go back and forth between stuff, so forgive the pauses. The Bequest, number 1. Here's just a little bit of the description from that. It says, a group of Tangia adventurers must go undercover in our modern world to stop artifacts and monsters from falling into the wrong hands. But how will they fare in a world without wizards and warriors, a world without heroes? They're basically, fantasy adventurer type fictional characters that have to go into the real world to stop these artifacts from being misused by people in our world, in the real world. I think this actually is a pretty cool idea and could be a pretty interesting book to pick up. This is one that, as I say often in these videos, if you see it on the shelf, pick it up, flip through it. If it looks interesting to you, you might consider picking it up. I think it has some potential. The next book I want to mention to you is Eros Psyche, number 1. Part of the description says, Sarah and Silje are 2 students learning the rules of the school, which includes classes by day and the casting of curses and spells by night. A love develops between the two, which is tender, but threatens to break under the weight of the dark, secret society within La Rosa, their school. This is one that when I talked about in the FOC video that I made when this book was up for FOC, I'm not generally a big fan of these kind of romance, fantasy stories, but this one actually sounds kind of interesting to me. I think it could be pretty good. If you, like me, are not necessarily immediately gravitating towards what these kind of, they seem like love story comic books. If you don't necessarily gravitate towards them, but you think maybe you might want to check one of them out, I would check out this one. The fantasy elements might be 50-50 with the love story, and that might make it more palatable for somebody who's less interested in the love story elements. Once again, something you may consider checking out this week. The next book I want to mention to you is Erratic number 4, and I mention it because I am a fan of it. I have been surprised with how much I like Erratic. Issue after issue, it's been enjoyable. I'm actually surprised that it's this low on the list, that more people aren't pulling it and checking it out, because I think it's been really, really good. This is issue number 4 of 5. You know, if you haven't been picking it up yet, you're probably not going to go back and find issues 1, 2, and 3 and then read 4 and 5, but I would if I were you. I've enjoyed it. It's been a fun, entertaining, exciting read, and I recommend it. The next book I want to mention to you is Ultraman, The Trials of Ultraman, number 1. Here is a little bit of the description. Actually, no, I'll read the whole thing. It says, Ultraman narrowly averted a catastrophe decades in the making. The world was saved, but also forever changed. Now comes the consequences. Much of the populace regard their defenders with suspicion. Enemies hide in plain sight. And even those closest to Shin Hayata don't necessarily have faith in the Giant of Light. But at last, the long-thought lost comrade has mysteriously returned. That's a good thing, right? The rise is over, the training wheels are off, and the stakes have never been higher. The trials of Ultraman begin here. Well, you know what? If you're a fan of Ultraman, you're all over this. If you could care less about Ultraman, you could probably care less. You probably couldn't care less about this. You know, I appreciate that Marvel has picked up Ultraman, and I appreciate that they put out the first thing that they put out, that Rise of Ultraman, and now they're putting out Trials of Ultraman. I mean, they're giving us Ultraman. You know, it's just not a character that necessarily resonates with me. If you're interested in Ultraman, put down in the comments why I should be checking out Ultraman. Please, please. I'd love to know why. The next book I want to mention to you is, where are you? Orphan and the Five Beasts, number 1. This is from Dark Horse Comics. Here's the description. Spurred on by her master's dying words, the adopted warrior, Orphan Mo, seeks to find and kill 5 former disciples who now threaten the land with corruption from their demonic powers. Part 5 deadly venoms and part surreal grindhouse, James Stokoe brings his knack for ultra-detailed fantasy imagery and over-the-top violence to this classic tale of revenge. I think that last sentence basically said everything you need to know. You know, ultra-detailed fantasy imagery, over-the-top violence, classic tale of revenge. The next book I'm going to mention to you this week is Origins number 5. This is once again a personal pick. This is a 6-part series that's coming right towards the end. It's been a nice little tale that really kind of leaves more questions than it gives answers, but the questions are not like deep-seated, like I need this to understand the story type questions. They're just kind of world-building questions. But the mystery behind the greater world, the world at large, is actually part of what's intriguing to me about this story. And with 2 issues left to go, I'm excited to find out what happens in the end. So this is a personal favorite for mine and a pick of mine for this week. The next book I want to mention to you is Ultra Mega number 1. Part of the description says, a cosmic plague has spread, transforming everyday people into violent, monstrous kaiju. Only the Ultra Mega, 3 individuals imbued with incredible powers, hold the line against this madness? Well, more of the description is in my FOC video. That's all I'm going to read today. But basically, this is kind of an interesting concept, that these kaiju, instead of like coming from the sea or anything like this, come from a plague and are transforming people like you and me into kaiju. And these special people, these three special people, are the only ones that are tasked with stopping it. That's a twist on it that I kind of like. So if you're into kaiju, you're going to be into this. But maybe that little bit of a twist, that if you're not a big kaiju fan, maybe that little bit of a twist to it will bring you in. I know it makes me a little bit more interested, but personally, not enough to pull the trigger on a new title when I'm trying to keep new titles down to a minimum. The next book I want to mention to you is Captain America Anniversary Tribute number 1. Part of the description says, Captain America celebrates 80 years. Wow, 80 years. A cadre of Marvel's best artists redraw and modernize Captain America's origin and the debut of Red Skull from Captain America Comics number 1, as well as Cap's return in the Marvel Age from Avengers number 4. So if you're a big Captain America fan, this is one you're absolutely going to get on board. You know, if you're a fan of these classic comic books and classic stories of Captain America, it could be fun to see them retold and redrawn by people who are working these days. If you're not a big Captain America fan, you probably aren't going to care too much about this. But if you wanted an opportunity to kind of go back and read some of two of the classic stories from Captain America's history, this might be a good opportunity to go ahead and check that out and do that. The next book I want to mention to you is Black Knight, Curse of the Ebony Blade, number 1. Now, I'm not going to read the description for this at all. You can find it in my FOC video. All I'm going to say is that if you are looking for more Black Knight stories, here you go. This is coming out of the King of Black tie-in with the Black Knight. Once again, Black Knight is not a character that I know very much about, and frankly, that I care very much about. But with this character's introduction into the MCU as an Avenger definitely coming, we all know about this coming with the guy who played Jon Snow on Game of Thrones, playing the Black Knight. We know he's coming, so we know that it makes sense that the Marvel Universe and comic books would be hyping up his character a little bit in anticipation for his appearance in the MCU. If you want to learn more about him and see more stories featuring him, now's your chance to pick up Black Knight, Curse of the Ebony Blade, number 1. The next book I want to mention to you is Superman, Red and Blue, number 1. It says, this new series presents fresh new visions of the Man of Steel in his 2 signature colors of red and blue. Well, this is very similar to what we've gotten already from Batman, with Batman Black and White. Now we're getting Superman Red and Blue. And just so you know, there is, I saw something yesterday about there's going to be a Wonder Woman Black and Gold coming out. So it's interesting that you have, it's an opportunity to take these fantastic characters, have fantastic writers and fantastic artists tell little stories featuring them. And it's interesting that what they do is to limit the color palette for it. I think it could lead to interesting artistic choices in these books. So for me, as a Batman fan, Black and White and checking those out is a no-brainer. Superman, I'm a little bit less of a fan with, so even my favorite writer could be writing one of these, and I might not be particularly interested in picking it up. Somewhat similar with the Wonder Woman one that's coming out. But if you're a Superman fan, and or you're just a fan of great writers and artists strutting their stuff, then this might be a book for you to check out this week. Next, I want to mention to you a book that's coming out this week, which is Amazing Spider-Man number 1. This is a King in Black Amazing Spider-Man number 1. You know, the description basically doesn't say anything at all about it. It basically just says King in Black tie-in. And I've been kind of anticipating some kind of significance King in Black wise in a Spider-Man title. As you all know, Symbiote Spider-Man #1, the King in Black title, was my pick of the week a couple months ago because I was anticipating something key to happen in a Spider-Man book. Well, that didn't pan out. Symbiote Spider-Man, I've stuck with it for some reason. It's been a cute little side story kind of, but it's really not doing much in the greater scheme of things for me as far as the King in Black storyline is going, or its own storyline in and of itself. But this Spider-Man one is similarly intriguing to me. I think it's a one-shot as opposed to Symbiote Spider-Man, which is like a 5-part. I think this is just a 1-part. So I don't know if this is just like, well, we have to work in as many tie-ins as possible, and we may, as if we're going to do it, and you know, we can have the Spider-Man story from the past. Let's do at least one story of Spider-Man that's taking place during the actual events of King in Black. So I don't know if it's just an excuse to put out another comic that people who are collecting all the King in Black titles will buy, or if something significant is going to happen in it. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, has kind of been tasked with looking over Dylan Brock during the events of King in Black. And I would think that being that Dylan is so central, it appears, to the King in Black storyline, that responsibility would have some kind of importance at some point. That something significant would happen around that task that Peter Parker has been given. So maybe something's going to happen in this book. I'm going to pick it up because I'm curious, and it's kind of a low commitment. I just have to pick up the one, and I don't know, like something in my gut says something's got to happen. But maybe it's all being saved for either Venom or the King in Black storyline proper. That remains to be seen, but I'm going to check out this book this week. The next one I want to mention to you is Radiant Black #2. Now, I mentioned this book previously once again when Radiant Black #1 was my pick several weeks ago, but then also in my FOC video. In that, Radiant Black #1 really didn't blow me away. I wasn't like amazed by it, and frankly, I wasn't going to pick up issue #2 until I saw the cover of the B cover, which is has what appears to be who's going to be our hero's nemesis. It's a similar costume, but with red tones, and obviously they're robbing a bank, so it's got to be a bad guy. So I decided I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to read issue #2 and give it a second chance to see if it's a book I want to stick with. Doubtful. But at the very least, I wanted to get this B cover so that I had the first cover appearance of this nemesis character, just in case there was ever a future for this book. Basically, I'll feel like my spec needs will have been met with this book. But we'll see. We'll see if I collect it into issue 3, which once again I think is doubtful. All right, now this is something I've done similarly before, and I'm gonna do it today. The next 10 books I'm gonna rattle off very quickly. These are the top 10 books as far as pulls were concerned, or popularity, as listed on League of Comic Geeks right now. So these are top 10, starting with number 10 to number 1. Number 10 is Star Wars Bounty Hunters #10. At number 9, we have Iron Man #7. At number 8, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #115. At number 7, we have Captain Marvel #27. At number 6, we have Sword #4. I've been enjoying Sword. I don't know if I'm going to be long-term on Sword, but I've been enjoying it. At number 5, we have Catwoman #29. At number 4, we have X-Force #18. At number 3, we have Thor #13. At number 2, we have Justice League number 59. This is an interesting one in part because I've been specking on Naomi a little bit, and it seems like Naomi might be coming front and center into the Justice League just a little bit. I believe that she's making her first appearance as a member of the Justice League, and the Justice League is going to be battling a bad guy from Naomi's homeworld. Whether or not it's the bad guy, I forget the name of the bad guy, from the Naomi limited series. I don't know if it's that character or not, or if it's a different bad guy. I assume it's probably going to be the one from the limited series. It's interesting that DC's finally getting around to focusing a little bit on Naomi, considering how popular she was. Geez, what was it, in 2019? So it looks like we're starting to get a little bit more focus on her. It might be worth checking out in that capacity. And then finally at number 1, the most popular, the most pulled comic book on League of Comic Geeks this week is Nightwing number 78. Why? I'm not exactly sure. When I saw Nightwing at number 1 this week, I mean, there's no Batman title to battle up against it. There's no Spider-Man title except for the King in Black tie-in. There's no Amazing Spider-Man this week. So the usual suspects at number 1 aren't there this week. So Nightwing is. There may be a new creative team taking over for Nightwing, which might be getting people excited about this book this week. But as far as the description was concerned, there really didn't look like anything there that stood out to me that would make it number 1. I like Nightwing. I think Nightwing is a fantastically underrated character, so I'm glad to see Nightwing at number 1, but I am still just a little bit surprised. Well, now that brings us to what my pick would be this week if I could buy just one book. And here's a little bit of a hint. I've already mentioned it. This was a really, it was a unique week for me in that I looked at all the books and I was like, okay, so which one is it going to be? I don't know. There was no book that immediately jumped out at me and said, yes, you're the pick this week, or even a handful of books that I had to choose from. So what I did is I looked at my books that I'm going to be pulling this week, which are these 6 books right here. And so I was like, let's go through a process of elimination and let's figure out which book is going to be my pick this week. The first one I could get rid of is Radiant Black. Just because I'm not so excited about it. Like, basically I'm asking myself, which book do I want to read first? Which one would I be most excited about? And Radiant Black is not it. While I'm going to give it a chance, it's a razor thin chance of continuing. Basically, I'm just looking for the spec on that cover. The next book I could eliminate was Origins number 5. Although I'm enjoying Origins number 5 very much, I think it's a deeply personal pick at this point. I don't think people in general are going to be running out to pick up Origins 5, so it was fairly easy for me to remove from the list. The next one I could remove from the list is Sword number 4. You know, in a way, Sword number 4 is kind of similar to Origins for me in that I'm enjoying it and I'm looking forward to reading it. Listen, if Origins was going past issue number 6, I probably wouldn't be continuing to collect it. I'd probably read the first story arc and give up. Sword is going to be an ongoing. It's going to be ongoing for a while. So I'm going to give it to the end of this first story arc, and then I'm going to decide. It seems really creative and imaginative and cool, but it really hasn't captured my attention the way I was hoping it would. But for now, I'm sticking with it. But it was easy for me to take off my list. The next one that was relatively easy for me to take off my list is King in Black, Amazing Spider-Man number 1. I think it's, I have a gut feeling about it, but that's all I got, is a gut feeling about it. It's probably just another cash grab opportunity to create a tie-in for King in Black by Marvel. Can't necessarily blame them, but I also can't say that I'm like gonna crack that one open at first. So that brings me to the last 2 books, which are Erratic number 4 and Thor number 13. And even though like Erratic has been an amazing, exciting, fun, surprise, enjoyable read for me, it's not my pick this week, it is Thor number 13, which probably all of you are saying like, Jeff, what's with the subterfuge? We knew from the very beginning you were going to end up picking Thor number 13. Why? Because you have repeatedly mentioned how big of a fan you are of Donny Cates, and look who you put next to you today. Yes, he's been staring us in the face the whole time. It was no accident that I put Thor right here. This is the commission that I got done by artists Donny Cates and his wife, Megan Hutchinson. They both collaborated on this commission that I actually won. If you haven't seen my video telling the story about this, I'll put the card for it right up there for you to check out. But anyways, going back to Thor number 13 as my pick for this week. Yes, I'm a big fan of Donny Cates. Yes, I went from somebody who thought that Thor's all right. Thor's all right. I always got kind of like a hurdle or something that was keeping me from really enjoying Thor was always kind of like the way that Thor speaks. I don't know why. It was just kind of a problem that I had. But I've been really enjoying Thor written by Donny Cates. The stories that Donny Cates has been telling have been really great. And this story, I've said it month after month, I should say. This story with Donald Blake has been really cool. And I really, really enjoy it. And Donald Blake, you know, on the surface seems like a character that wouldn't be much of a nemesis for anybody. But he has proven over and over and over again that he is going to be tough to beat. So I'm interested to see what happens in the end of this storyline. I think this is the second to last issue of this storyline. But as the storyline progresses, I'm really, really interested in like how Thor is going to get out of his situation, how Thor is going to stop Donald Blake, because Donald Blake is kind of a victim in this scenario. So I have sympathy for him, even though he's a really bad guy. I mean, he's really, really lost it. So Donny Cates has done a really good job of telling a story that I am engaged in, that I'm interested in, that I am really excited about and curious to know what happens next. And that is why, because when I was looking at all of the books that I'm pulling this week, and I asked myself, which one am I most excited about? Which one am I going to read first? It was Thor number 13, and that is why I made it my pick to be the book I would buy this week if I could buy just one book. All right. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoy the information. Once again, sorry it was late, and sorry I'm not quite as organized as I have been in previous weeks. I promise I will be back true to form next week. If you are like, Jeff, it's okay, you still did a really good job, here's another chance for you to hit that like button. And if you hit that dislike button, put down in the comments why you hit it. But like, Jeff, you really blew it this week. This was a bad week for you. Great. That's fine. Hit that dislike button. Leave that comment if that's how you feel. But don't hit the dislike button and not leave a comment. I want to know why you hit it. I want to know why if you hit that dislike button. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please, I invite you to go ahead and hit the subscribe guy right here. He looks a lot like that guy right there. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you're informed when I post new videos. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.